Was in a rental sublease at an apartment room where the tenants were trying to get me to pay for the months I was vacated if I could not find a replacement. I asked for a copy of the lease because the sublease had ended and they were citing the old lease rather than the new one. The tenants would not provide one, sending me the old lease. The property management wouldn't send me one, even after multiple requests from a answers emails immediately agent. 2 days before the rent was due, the agent finally sends me the new lease after I send a stern email with legalese phrases. Turned out I wasn't even on the lease at all, as sublettor or tenant. And based on tenancy laws, I could just leave if I was vacated and gave notice. I gave 2 months' notice. So I left. Non-compete clauses. Never sign one, ever. It just gives them leverage to abuse you. Many negative experiences here. I have a positive one. I contracted house insurance not too long ago. Reading my contract allowed me to be aware of the restrictions, but also of all kinds of protections that seem trivial, so your insurance agent might not mention them, but that are actually helpful. This way, I found out if I lose my keys, the replacements and locksmith services are insured. Very useful when replacing car keys. These days is upwards of $300. Also found out I have a protection that allows me to provide an indemnity of up to $5,000 to someone injuring themselves in my home for their medical expenses. $5,000 might not seem like much, but I live in Canada, so most medical expenses are free. Anyone considering auditioning for this Factor or similar talent shows would be very wise to read the contract before signing. You are giving away all your YouTube videos, SoundCloud recordings, tweets, etc. to the company for them to monetize. HTTP. When I signed my kid up for a daycare, among other things, I was asked to sign a release for letting them take his picture and use it. When I refused, the daycare manager said that it's not for advertisement but for letting them use an app that sends pictures to the parents. Again, I refused, and I said I don't agree until I review the app's privacy terms and security practices. I got the difficult parent look, but there was nothing she could do about it. 1 week later, there were headlines about a security breach at that very same app. The details of about 300,000 toddlers, their photos and personal information were exposed. Lesson learned, always be a security nerd. Bought a car, and they offered biweekly payments if you signed up. Read the contract, and there were no extra fees, so it seemed like a no-brainer. After a few months, I compared my payments to the reduction of the principal, and it looked like an entire payment and a half was missing. When I called to inquire about it, I was told that the $750 was an enrollment fee. My jaw dropped. I never would have signed up for that fee for something I could do on my own for free. Went back, pulled out the paperwork, and found that there was never an enrollment fee disclosed. The line for the amount was left blank. Sent the contact back to the company and they honored it. As a translator, I usually work through agencies. It means I don't have to pay for very expensive liability insurance, and they are supposed to have a proofreader check things out before they send the job on. In the last contract, they said I'd be liable for up to $2 million if a client complained. I scratched out the paragraph and told them I didn't agree. They were fine with it. They've also started hiring proofreaders. People, if you don't want to agree with a particular part of a contract, edit it and tell whoever is making you sign the contract. You may be pleasantly surprised. Lease paperwork for my car showed an incorrect mileage and an incorrect down payment. Mileage was only off by like 150 or something, and down payment by like 60. Got a free tank of gas and a free oil change out of it. Life's about the small victories. A friend of mine, older couple, didn't look at the contract of a property they bought from an individual. This was just land, a few acres. There was an obvious line in that said, if you default on the loan, you immediately forfeit your land back to us. Well, they caught it after the fast and paid ahead of schedule extra to get out of that shorty deal. This was 40 years ago. I moved to Southeast Asia to work as a teacher. In the contract that they originally emailed me, they offered $1,000 to cover my moving costs. Really, that was just barely more than my one-way ticket, but at least I wouldn't lose money. When I arrived, they gave me a copy of the contract to officially sign. But I noticed that there were fewer total enumerated points on that contract than on the one emailed to me. I looked more closely, and they had removed the provision for 1,000 moving costs. I know Southeast Asian culture, so I knew blowing up wouldn't get me anywhere. I played it off as a mistake and calmly insisted on signing a printed-off version of the one emailed to me. I got that 1,000, but thank goodness I read the contract again. Smartphone repair shop I worked at insisted that I sign a contract that said I wouldn't be allowed to work in a tech field of any sort. No smartphone repair, no. No tech, nothing for 4 years. I changed the document to my liking, highlighted all the changes and signed it. No issues. I was offered an opportunity to contract with the state where I live. They had a clause in the boilerplate that said if they paid me within 10 days of receiving my invoice, they could cut the amount they paid me by 10. I brought it up to the person contracting with me and she had no idea the term was in there. Not only had she never had anyone complain about it, she had never read the boilerplate herself. I got her to remove it, and the contract went well, though it did take far more than 10 days to get paid. Car accident, I was not at fault. Car was clearly a write-off. The insurance company had it towed to a shop. Shop guy sweet-talked me and then tried to get me to sign papers, authorizing all repairs. If I had done that, my resale value would have dropped significantly. I called insurance and asked to have another shop look at it. It took them a couple months to sort out all the mess on their end, but they confirmed a total loss. They ended up paying me a couple grand less than it was worth. But that's better than losing 75% of your resale value in an instant for an accident you didn't even cause. Always read the fine print edit, words. In my town there is a medical university. I wanted to study medicine, so I passed the chemistry and biology exams. I was accepted. Together with my mother, I went to register for the medicine specialty. We got into a room to pay the semestrial Feminist 504 lebs. There was a woman who asked us what I was going to study. Mom and I both said medicine. We paid the fee. Then she gave us some sort of a document to sign that I was going to study that certain specialty. I signed it and gave it to my mother to check for any details. She saw that instead of medicine, it was written pharmacy. We managed to fix that issue. I was quite worried, When my friend and I turned up to our hotel in Portugal, the receptionist said we had to pay an addition 250 deposit and sign a behavioral agreement because we were 21-year-old. This deposit is literally not mentioned anywhere, and I knew my contract inside out and wasn't going to pay it. Then we spotted on their paperwork, explaining why they wanted this deposit. We saw that it specified that it was only 4 groups over 4 that had 2 rooms. When we pointed that out, the receptionist said, "Oh, well, that's wrong." Wrong or not, we didn't pay it, but did sign the behavioral agreement. Wouldn't go back to that hotel, was super anal about everything and hated young people. But like it was on the strip, so that would have been most of its customers like. My divorce papers. I was young, 22, and in another state. He sent them to me and it stated that we would share custody of our 9-month daughter, getting her for 3 months at a time, rotating. Mind you, he lived in Mianink. It also stated that if he were to ever die, his mother got all his parental rights. I did not sign them and instead waited until their notary seal was expired and got my own lewer and drew up my own papers. I have no idea if it matters if the seal was expired. I just told them that the contract was void because it wasn't filed within the time frame. If you never signed it, there wasn't a contract.